At 19:15 on July 6, 2022 in Bradford, England, West Yorkshire police officers were looking for a girl who had gone missing in late June. As they searched the street next to a vacant lot, one of the police officers noticed something and quickly became interested in it: a carpet wrapped in something. As the officers got closer, they smelled a familiar smell. It was the smell of death. Today's case took place in Bradford, England, where 20-year-old Samaya Begum lived. She was a bright and hardworking student studying biomedicine at Leeds Beckett University. Samaya also worked as a carer for elderly people with disabilities. After such a horrifying discovery, some policemen lose their minds and quit their jobs. However, there are other policemen who are obsessed with crime scenes and treat them with cold blood. However, there are also those who are obsessed with crime scenes and practically end up inside the killer of this type of people. She even blogged on social media and treasured her work there. I was not sure about my career path because I had no experience as a nurse, but since I started working here I have enjoyed life. The management has been supportive and encouraging, and overall I excited to be a part of this team. Samaya grew up quiet and reclusive, but she excelled in college, demonstrating remarkable academic ability and incredible dedication. Her life was finally starting to improve after years of turmoil. Samaya came from a huge chaotic family that had been separated for a long time. She called the police when she was 16 years old. She was forced to accept her parents' plan to marry a Pakistani relative against her will, and when her father threatened to kill her if she refused, she made an incredibly brave choice and reported them to the police. A protection order against forced marriage was issued on September 7, 2020. All children were removed from the home as it was affecting her and her siblings. After this, Samaya moved into a house on Binney Street with her uncle Dada Khan and her paternal grandmother. Being away from Yasin allowed her to live the freedom and independence that she had always desired. She could eat whatever she wanted, wear whatever clothes she liked, go out with friends on her own, and watch whatever TV shows she wanted. Her relative later revealed that she was actually homeschooled for several years and was denied admission to university. Her freedom to continue her education was an advantage of living here. The girl sent a WhatsApp message to her close friend at 3:35 p.m. on June 25, 2022. After working a late shift, surveillance cameras spotted her as she was walking home at about 1 a.m. At 4:40 p.m., she replied and sent Samaya a video of the rain outside her window. When the SMS did not arrive, a friend assumed that Samaya's battery was low and did not attach much importance to it. But over time, the girl became worried and called Samaya's family to find out if there was any news from her. She was informed that a missing persons report had already been filed and that the day the girl was last seen, Uncle Samaya and Dawood returned to the house and found the door unlocked, which was very unusual. When he entered, he saw his brother Muhammad Teras Khan. It was around 1830. He asked him why he was there because Muhammad was not really allowed in the house due to his aggressive and violent nature. He had a long criminal history and several convictions. On June 23, 2016, Muhammad was found guilty of beating his own daughter after threatening to cut her body with a knife and saying he would do it because she was talking to boys. That same year, Muhammad was also given a restraining order, prohibiting him from contacting with his mother or come to her house at 32 Binney Street. Hours passed and there was no news from Samaya. Usually she tried to tell David and Grandma where she was going and how long she would be gone, so this was very unusual for her. Just like her aunt, David started calling her and leaving messages, but when she did not answer, that's when the real fear began. At midnight, Dawood once again tried to contact her niece. Her aunt called her again, but she never received an answer. Dawood reported Samaya's disappearance to the police, and several police officers in the western region made several attempts to contact her. I also called the phone once. Samaya didn't answer me either. Authorities also contacted her uncle Muhammad, who was at the house that day, but he did not respond. 53-year-old Muhammad was living in a shipping container at 5:47 p.m. the same day police began patrolling. When they arrived at his address, he waved his hand and hung up his things. His room was small and compact, measuring 30 feet long and 9 feet wide with another container on top. His Mitsubishi car was parked, and when the police asked him why he did not answer their repeated calls, he replied that he was just busy. Muhammad also mentioned that the day before he went to Binney Street to deliver fruit to his mother. When he arrived at that house, it was locked, so he called Samaya and asked her to open it for him. While the hunt for Samaya continued, The police began to monitor the activities of her uncle Muhammad, and after viewing the CCTV footage, it was revealed that on June 25 at 1:52 p.m., Beanie Street guy arrived. He said that the girl was not in the living room when he left, and that he did not see her. This wasn't the only disturbing evidence they found. They later spotted Muhammad's car driving through the area. He parked on Mile Lane, removed a large and heavy object from the car, and then dragged it away at 5 p.m. One of the police officers was tasked with listening to the CCTV audio, and was able to hear the man a voice saying, "Get out of my sight, I'll be back." After this, steps and running were heard. Then a woman's voice said, "Come back, come here." After being questioned by authorities on June 27th, Muhammad Khan was taken into custody on suspicion of kidnapping. He claimed to have a very poor memory, but he appeared quite calm even in light of the seriousness of the charges against him. Muhammad said that while the investigation was ongoing, he had a generally positive relationship with his niece. That same day at around 7:30 p.m., he was questioned by police. Later that night, they went to 32 Binney Street to take photos and searched the house to take more photos. They approached the container where Muhammad lived. The next day, while they were still recording, the police discovered a smoldering trash can next to him. Inside was a partially burned cell phone which was seized for further examination and analysis. It turned out that it belonged to Samaya. Muhammad was questioned again. On June 28th, he was questioned again at the police station regarding Samaya's disappearance. But he remained silent. He said, "I will not give his statements and comments on the same day." When the police asked if he really wanted to help find his niece, when he was questioned again at 17:07, he repeated that he had no idea where Samaya was, and his lawyer advised him not to answer again. He was ordered by the court to remain in custody, so police questioned him about why he went to Binney Street. He refused to give any details, only stating that he had a compelling motive for going there. Police eventually released the man pending an investigation, though the judge gave them another 36 hours to question him. Investigators returned to Beanie Street on July 1st. At that moment, they saw something on a red metal table that caught their attention. Blood stains on the underside of the living room carpet, which they wiped up and sent for further examination. It turned out that they had the same group, Samaya's blood. Police were monitoring Muhammad's whereabouts on the day the girl disappeared. On June 25th, he was caught on camera removing the key to a house on Beanie Street, which allowed him to subsequently re-enter. CCTV captured a man and woman raising their voices at 3:49 p.m. on the same day he returned to Binney Street. At this point, Sai's phone was no longer active, but Muhammad's phone data showed that he was using the internet to search for large trash bags. It was the house that the prohibition order prevented him from visiting. The corner of the door blocked the camera's view, but CCTV footage from the shipping container where he lived showed him backing up to the container and setting it upright. 11 days after Samaya was reported missing, an unidentified discovery was made that scared everyone. The girl's body was found wrapped in a carpet and dumped in a landfill, where it was left to decompose in the summer heat. An autopsy was carried out. It turned out that a knife had been stuck in her back. It had to be removed, otherwise it could lead to death due to the possibility of infection. He said that the autopsy revealed nothing to indicate a natural death, and that there were other injuries consistent with an assault prior to death. The degree of decomposition, particularly in the head and neck area, prevented authorities from establishing the cause of death, although they stated that she had been subjected to severe violence. Muhammad was again taken into custody after police arrived at his home at 9:10 p.m. on July 6th. This was the sixth time he had been questioned by the police, this time on suspicion of murder. He was informed that the police had discovered the badly decomposed body of a woman, and although they had not yet been able to identify her, they were quite confident that they had found a Samaya. When he was asked whether he was responsible for her death, he replied that it was definitely not. Then when asked how he was moving around on the day the girl was last seen, he replied that he was just driving around the neighborhood. The officers then asked if he was looking for a place to dispose of Samaya's body, to which he again answered in the negative. Finally, the detective asked him why he parked so close to where the body was eventually discovered. Muhammad claimed that he could park anywhere because it was a free nation, and the fact that a body was later found there had nothing to do with it. He said that it was just a coincidence when someone asked him why the phone was found burning in a trash can near his home. Muhammad expressed his outrage at the thought of a member of his family being subjected to such violence. adding that he was not aggressive and that most people would consider him a handsome and kind guy. Why did he have a key to the house, they asked? He then explained to them that this did not happen so that he could return home and grab Samaya's body, but because his mother had just had a heart attack. When police asked him about camera footage of him removing something heavy from a car during his 7th and final interrogation on July 8, he replied, "That's just nonsense." When asked about the metal spike found on the body, he replied, "I don't know what it was," implying that his claims of innocence were meaningless. Muhammad was charged with murder and taken into custody. He later appeared before the royal court on September 20th. When asked about his confession, Mohammed Taris Khan said, "I am innocent, ma'am. I deny the charge of murder. I admit obstructing the disposal of Samaya's body and attempting to destroy her phone at Bradford Crown Court." Prosecutor Jason Peters said Samaya suffered serious injuries in a brutal attack at home, and Taris Khan used prison connections to plead guilty. He said her body was dumped and left to decompose like trash in an empty parking lot, so he could not have known about Muhammad's earlier admission that he did not know about the girl's death. Later in the trial, Muhammad did not testify and the prosecution stated that he simply could not answer because he was guilty. Instead, Muhammad's lawyer stated in court that his client was called to Binney Street to dispose of the body and that he did not know about Samaya's death until it happened. As for Muhammad's motive, it was stated that she was killed in an alleged honor killing because she allegedly embarrassed the family by refusing to marry a Pakistani man. Muhammad's lawyer argued that Samaya's real killer was his client's brother Yasin and that Muhammad had no motivation at all. According to Samaya's aunt, Yasin suffered humiliation. After the girl told the authorities that he was pushed into marriage, he became furious. The prosecution opposed the claim that Muhammad was responsible not only for disposing of her body, which he later admitted to, but also for killing her. Muhammad's lawyer argued that Yasin had complete control over Maya and was very cruel to her, claiming that her life was a living hell that her father had created, according to the prosecution. The above CCTV footage raised its voice, indicating that he was given a key to the property, and recent searches of his phone confirmed this. Although the exact time of Samaya's death is unknown, it can be assumed that it occurred when Muhammad visited Binney Street for the second time. The detective constable further testified that he was in the interrogation room with Muhammad on June 29 when the man asked what punishment a person would face in his situation. The detective replied that murder was punishable by life imprisonment. Muhammad then asked what the punishment was for a less serious crime such as manslaughter. The detective stated that after that the girl did not communicate with anyone else. The detective also said that such a decision is made by the judge, having considered all aspects of the case. The prosecutor stated that this is a difficult question for an innocent person. This question must be answered by someone who realizes what he has done. The jury then returned their verdict, rejecting Muhammad's claim that he had merely disposed of her body and was not responsible for her murder. After killing his niece, Mohammed Taris Khan was found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of release after 25 years. The investigating officers will be 78 years old when Mohammed Taris Khan is eligible to apply for parole. This event finally brings closure to this terrible case. Samaya Begum's murder caused huge shock and anger among neighbors who left flowers outside the house and a local councillor who said the incident had deeply affected the community. He was also sentenced to 5 years in prison for interfering with justice. According to neighbors on Binney Street, Dawood was unable to return to the house due to the suffering he experienced due to what happened to his niece, Begum, who was 20 years old at the time of her death, had her whole life ahead of her. She showed incredible courage and resilience, speaking frankly to the authorities, and only now has she won the independence and freedom she worked so hard for. Friends, write your opinion in the comments, and also subscribe to the channel and watch my other videos. Thank you all.